here today because I have orange juice.
Got your favorite snack in your orange juice?
Get your favorite snack in your orange juice because we're about to go to hot chick heaven.
Look at her one unique arc of hair.
Welcome to Undercooked Analysis, where we are all the size of an average human mother.
Trying to play Sonic the Hedgehog.
It's no, here you got. So I hope you got that. Wow, what a great intro, gang, for this thing that so many people put so much effort into for our sake.
I'm embracing just 2010's fucking memes because I'm old. I don't care anymore.
In case no one's caught on to what the catchphrase of the Creative Horror Network should be, this show is dumb.
It's sad to me that is absolutely true. But then again, right now, there's only... Well, the only shows that are kind of really championing are progressing through that aren't either on hiatus or are finished are this and the Jameson tapes.
One where we are heavily inebriated and being very dumb.
And the other one where I'm just sort of inebriated.
Yeah. I'm in a beer 3 at this very moment.
Oh, I'm on 5.
I'm stone cold sober, and I feel like I'm just getting a residual buzz through because of you two. So that says something. But we're here to do some cool shit. Namely, we have deliberated, we have consulted, and we have decided the 3 winners, the 3 top placeholders of our new Pulp Writing Challenge.
Woo.
This was very difficult. And I know we say that every writing challenge, but y'all,
this was the hardest one.
Yeah.
This is the new hardest one. Like,
yeah.
We deliberated, even after we'd made our own list, we deliberated for a solid hour.
We had 3 rounds of rankings to come to the top 3.
Yeah.
We deliberated for a whole hour. It got ugly. I said some deeply hurtful personal things about both of my friends. I punched David once.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to fly out to California to do that.
Mm-hmm. Beach Marine's there with the ice pack right now.
Yeah, I listen. I don't want to think about it too much because it got really heated. I'm still like nursing the shiner right here. So
we all said a bunch of ethnic slurs that did not fit in to us talking about each other.
Yeah, it was kind of weird that I couldn't believe like the fact that you called me an Enwa because that's like an Elder Scrolls thing. But
Oh man, I briefly thought you. There was a second of sheer panic.
I felt the fear of God creep through you for a second.
The fear of God in anime.
Where I thought you said you called me the N. You could have cut a cigar with my butthole just now.
I don't know if Future Marine will cut that out or not, but I think that'll stay.
If we wanted to be brave, we would just bleep that out after the end and let the audience decide, but we're not going to do that.
That's fair.
Just on the video version of this, we get the Simpsons technical difficulties moment.
Okay. Oh, anyway. So yeah, but we're okay. It just was, it was very nearly a damning process. But hey, the floodgates are open. We've made the decisions, and now we're gonna keep you all in suspense for a little bit. But if you've seen the title of this, you know who our 3rd place winner is, or you know what the name of our 3rd place story is. So, that's part of it.
Yeah, that is part of it. So the decision we reached on the rankings, after we went through a few different iterations of trying to figure out our top 3, is all 3 of us picked a different number 1 for our lists. And I think that speaks greatly to how fucking incredible all of the entries we got are.
Yes.
All of our lists were wildly different. But we picked, each of us put forth our number one, and then we discussed from there what order they would be in, and came to an agreement.
I was hoping that we would have a huge variety of stories here, and we did. And that's
without a doubt.
Again, everything that was submitted that we have ranked is just, none of it's bad, all of it's good. It was very, very difficult to choose our top three here. So, even if you're a runner up, just understand that we're all very, very happy with what came in and very proud of all of you. So good job, seriously.
Yeah, every single one of you is going to deserves a commendation. And I do want to talk about your stories a little later on. We will get around to that, but we're going to keep you all in suspense for a little longer. So
we are your three dads, and we are very proud of you.
Yes, and we are all going out for ice cream.
Yeah, all three of us are going to get you different ice creams. You're going to be so fucking full of ice cream.
Alan, what ice cream are you going to give them?
I'm a fan of Spumoni.
Okay.
Which is the Italian Neapolitan, essentially.
Oh yeah.
It is chocolate ice cream, cherry ice cream, and pistachio ice cream.
Okay.
It as I've just Googled, comes from the Italian word spuma, meaning foam, which does not sound very appetizing now that I think about it.
Want some foam cream?
Enjoy some foam.
You kids want some foam?
Here, let me fill up your glass. That glass was all foam.
They're getting mint chip for me because mint chip is objectively the best ice cream.
Don't tell me, bro. Mint chip.
Bro, if I can have a moment, mint chip gets so much shit, bro. And I've been trying out all of the diet ice cream bars that are out there. Mm-hmm. And number one with a bullet. I've tried that. There's a brand, I think it's called Yasso, that does frozen Greek yogurt bars. And I had a couple of their other ones, and they were bullshit. But then I got to their mint chocolate chip one, and that one's the fucking winner.
I know that mint is an acquired taste, but I don't care. It's my favorite fucking thing ever.
Yasso mint chocolate chip is the winner of the diet ice cream bar war that I've been involved in judging. You know how people judge a war?
Hey, if you believe in our ability to judge this, maybe you should consider us for war judges in the future.
Why do people listen to us? I don't understand.
People are. It's the Monty Python meme. Everybody is probably screaming, "Get on with it!" But also, you're getting mint chip from me too, because I was gonna say that, and then Abysmii said it, and I was also gonna say that. So you get two instances of mint chip and Spumoni. Anyway, we're gonna read the Pulp story now.
Yeah,
a Pulp story that you wrote, or I shouldn't say you wrote it. A mysterious entity wrote it.
Yeah, written by the mysterious entity.
This is our third place winner. The story in question is Pursuit of the Ivory Horror. A haunting encounter with a sinister beast by Redacted. By author spilled ink on the page.
You can highlight the text under the ink and read what it says.
Yes.
So their actual name, sorry to spoil it for everybody, is Authorship Expunged. So thank you for submitting your story, Mr. or Mrs. Expunged.
Would you like me? I'll tell you what. Why don't we read the story, and then at the end, remind me, and I will give the author's pen name.
Sure.
Okay.
But yeah. This is our third place winner. And again, tough call, but I'm pretty happy with how the top three shook out. And I don't know. I think we'll just elaborate on it a little bit as we go through. But I think we have beat around the bush long enough. Let's start.
Yeah. Pursuit of the Ivory Horror by Authorship Expunged. A brutal storm beat at the window panes. With each percussive smack, resonating like the force of hundreds of tiny fists. Heavy droplets coalesced and raced in great sheets upon impacting the surface, and their aggression subsided as they eased onto and flowed over the frame below. Combined with winds that howled in a beastly manner, one's mind could conjure the knocks of a furious stranger demanding entrance with little imagination. The house, confident I was that its foundation would hold strong through this storm like the many it had before, protested quietly. I felt a kinship between us as I listened to its creaks and groans, taking small comfort where I was able, knowing we were chilled to our frames in equal fashion.
That is a great opening paragraph.
Very strong opening.
That's some good fucking writing, you guys.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hate to spoil it. Hate to spoil it for everybody, but this was Alan's number one.
Mm-hmm.
With the lights extinguished, the stars obscured by gray clouds, and any hint of spring sunlight that would have peeked between them having long since vanished many hours ago, the darkness within the bedroom was thick and oppressive. The only thing to penetrate the pitch was a lone, distant street lamp. Its dim glow caused the windows to either side of my headboard to cast a pair of faint rectangles across the polished floor, falling just short of kissing the wall's baseboard opposite of the bed. The torrent rushing against the glass projected faint, writhing shadows that turned the floor into a pit of squirming eels. Seasons prior, I would have paid hardly any consideration to such a mundane squall, perhaps with only a moment's thought to its ferocity, as my notions bled away into restful nothingness. However, with years of tormenting dreams so fresh in my memory, and the twisting silhouettes in the room making my recollection ever clearer, I wish so dearly to remain awake. Squirming eels, everyone.
Yeah.
Squirming eels. I used to play bass for squirming eels. I held certainty that with the streets as filled as they were by such a tempestuous downpour, that hardly any space was left for more typical New York traffic. When I moved to the city in 1911, the roads were mostly populated by carriages. In the last 3 years, I had gradually seen them replaced by motor cars. Though it wasn't nearly as choked as downtown Manhattan, the corner of Yarmouth I resided on had a moderate number of vehicles pass by in fair weather. No matter the transport, if any souls found themselves in an unfortunate enough position to be traveling on this night, neither the sound of tire nor hoof made it to my ears over the pounding rain.
Oh, gross. Sorry.
Are you all right?
Wrong. I drank wrong.
I drank wrong, a Jameson Tapes memoir.
Just want to give a shout out to High Noon. I know I've been plugging their vodka seltzers for so long, but they do tequila seltzers now as well. Blanco tequila with real fruit juice, sparkling water, and natural flavors. Not a paid endorsement. As the Lyceum and the New Amsterdam theaters were constructed, and news had spread east, I decided my prospects of a career in the musical arts was more lucrative within the same municipality. The nearly 3-day journey by rail on the California Limited, combined with an additional day on the 20th Century Limited, made for a nearly 100-hour-long grueling endeavor in totality. What was a gentle rocking in the daylight hours felt like combative rattling once I had settled into my bunk during the night. I found myself tossing and turning, hardly able to rest from the noise and vibrations. That very restlessness, however, was more akin to sleeping as a babe in a mother's embrace, once compared to the torturous nights I had yet to experience. That's right. We were traveling through the tunnel of foreshadowing.
From the very night after I had unpacked my things, my sleep was haunted by horrible nightmares. I would rise every morning feeling troubled with no memory of what made me feel so queerly. Slowly it crescendoed into a dread that extended to every moment of my existence as my nightly visions increased in clarity. My own weight seemed to evaporate from my body as I was left to fall endlessly. The black void of slumber would be pierced by pinpricks of white lights. A fiery burn enveloped me as steadily as the dark faded away to a swirling expanse of sickeningly bright blues, pinks, and magentas. Laying my gaze upon them made my head ache as smoky tendrils entwined and weaved into each other to form new shades. It was as though I were descending into space, forever sinking deeper and further away from anything that could bring me reassurance. I'd awaken the next morning, my hot perspiration acting as a last dying recollection of that wretched ocean of stars. I couldn't shake how the experience felt closer to reality than anything my mind had called forth prior.
I had begun fighting sleep recently, for how much I feared returning to that blazing dreamscape. On that night, I was brought to such extreme exhaustion from my irregular dozing that without removing my boots, cap, or eyeglasses, clothes drenched in rainwater so thoroughly that it saturated through the sheets, I lay myself in bed without giving them much of a regard. Stronger still, the storm raged as my eyelids began to flutter.
Just as my consciousness began to fade, the familiar smoldering grip of my night terrors danced like the tongues of a raging fire at my ankles. That sentence gave me an erection.
Foreshadowing.
I was startled awake once again, and still the torch at my feet persisted. My eyes were not met by the dim to which they had closed. Instead, by twisting coils of rose-white light snaking up my form. The entire bedroom was now bathed in their awful glow, as if a persistent lightning had struck not some distant tree, but my own footboard. The portraits lining my walls looked like blank canvases, and the bric-a-brac lining my work desk and shelving were engulfed by the ghoulish luminosity. It was as though the dark, squirming masses thrown by the windows upon the floorboards had arisen and inverted their shade. Strips of sunlight constricted tight around me, and I hardly had thrown my head back and let out a scream I didn't think possible by my own lungs, before I was entirely engulfed and my vision left bleached.
I really, really like that description.
Mm-hmm. After moments that passed more like hours or days, the feeling of being embraced by crematorium flashes subsided. My skin continued to swelter, though the sensation had diminished to something more similar to standing beneath the shadeless intensity of a mid-July sun. Soon, too, did my vision return to some normalcy, as a brilliant cirri receded from my face and dissipated as quickly as they had leapt upon me. Despite my back still resting upon my mattress, I was no longer met with the ceiling of my own sleeping quarters as I gazed directly above, nor the wash of overcast I knew would be beyond it. I could not even find comfort in a blue expanse, for the cloudless sky was saturated by a carmine red.
The terrifying physicality of my touch against the linens was something I was only just becoming aware of as I stared upwards in awe. Nausea tied knots in my gut, for such a clear view of the Empyrean revealed the anomalous nature of the celestial bodies within. A plenilune hung magnified threefold, stars speckled behind it in exotic patterns between which I could not trace any known constellations. What disturbed me most, visible from behind a wine-colored haze, was a pair of what could only be completely foreign planets. I could stare no longer, deathly afraid of the fingers of insanity growing intimate with the corners of my mind. With quivering knees, battling the powerful urge to simply return to my blankets and either awaken the morning after this nightmare passed the same as ever, or perish by the elements as if it were all as real as I dreaded, I sat up and swung my legs over the bedside.
So, everyone who's like, how come they're not reading my story? Understand that we told everyone to be overly verbose and purple prose the shit out of this. We have to read it out loud. Two of us under the influence of alcohol.
Yeah.
To be fair, you all are doing a great job.
Nah, we're doing all right. I'm surprised.
I'm very good at drinking and reading. My own bed, positioned as it was on a path of copper-colored cobbles, no longer provided any relief placed in such an alien landscape. The ground was a sheet of flat basalt, from which only the blackened remains of vegetation burst forth. It gave not the impression of natural flora, but of long-dead sprigs and branches forced through the surface from below, leaving deep gouges and rubble where they had. If I assumed that the angle the bed was facing matched the same cardinal direction here as it had in the room I had set it, which along with the very idea of a compass pointing north in this place was something I doubted, then I would be facing westernly. To my left and right circled a brick wall, the ends of which disappeared directly into the side of two tall buildings. Beyond them continued the corridor of a city street unlike any I had ever seen prior.
Some dumbass viewing a map of this place would find it near impossible. No, I'm kidding. A layperson viewing a map of this place would find it near impossible to deny the madness of the cartographer. Such a chart would have contained a wealthy man's garden property from an isolated countryside, hastily cut from other documents with sharp, jagged edges, pasted in the middle of a sprawling metropolis. The cobblestone path continued towards the paved road that ran through it, and the two collided so abruptly that they appeared sliced, with the thicker asphalt elevated by no more than an inch. Fences astride both sidewalks finished with a jutting rail rather than a picket or post, and the bases of the nearby lampposts broke off, with a straight side that snapped away from its rounded shape.
I used to play bass for Madness of the Cartographer.
That's strong. I like that.
I want to ask, just as we're getting this deep in, these are extremely visual, like specific visuals here. Are you finding, as you're reading it, are you having a more easy or more difficult time picturing how this is playing out?
I imagine if, like, our audience, if I was the audience here, it would be a bit more difficult because I think you have to read this. And that's how pulp usually is. Like, you have to read it. You get engrossed and immersed. I hope that this translates to the people listening because it is dense. And that was the point. Again, we have asked people to be incredibly dense in their writing. So, like, if someone was reading me the fucking Lord of the Rings, it would be kind of difficult at portions. You know, how many paragraphs are dedicated to Shadowfax's fucking mane? Like, okay, we get it.
How many paragraphs in it are the very specifics of each area that the hobbits walk through?
I think if someone tried to read me the Silmarillion, I'd kill myself.
I'd kill them first. Why have you done this to me, Mom? I just wanted a bedtime story.
No, I don't need to know about the Einar, okay? Can't Gandalf just be a wizard? Why does he also have to be an angel? The avenue was so broad, it seemed fit for 6 lanes of vehicle traffic, if not something larger that I refused to imagine. The buildings lining each side of the massive street were made of deep, cool-colored material from a source unknown to me. The structures were each at least 5 stories in height, the tallest of which impossibly surpassed the Woolworth by no less than 10 floors. Some levels were separated by trim, sidings, or eaves, with each monolithic edifice compacted so tightly against the next that their individual distinctions were entirely lost. The scarcity of alleyways between them made them seem more like gigantic. I said gigantic. The scarcity of alleyways between them made them seem more like giant misshapen books filling a shelf than anything a man could reside within. Their uses, be they residential, business, or otherwise, were completely unapparent to me. No two appeared identical, paving great rows of unique surfaces. All their exteriors were decorated by elements either spanning decades or of architectural design or else were removed from mankind-like creation entirely. I'd have called the placement of the components nonsensical if they had not each felt so meticulously planned for. They fit together as though they were cut from the same stone and refitted in the very place they had come from. The scattered accents, both carved and extruding, were spaced evenly between windows, multicolored lights, and multi-story signage. The signboards, often surrounding by bulbs that shifted hues and blinking slowly, had sigils, the likes of which I had never laid eyes on before, printed upon them.
The thing I wanted to add previously is the Silmarillion is maybe the first book. It's maybe the first book that I had to force myself to read.
I mean, I DNF'd that. I was like, nah, I'm good. Whatever.
I was in middle school when I was going through my Tolkien bit, about to become a freshman in high school. And I was just like, no, Alan, you're going to keep fucking reading the Silmarillion. You're going to finish it.
And then you'll finally be cool.
I mean, I have a confession to make, and I think I've said this before, but I only got halfway through the Two Towers before I stopped.
That's like, you know what? It's fair.
It's fair.
Look, the Ents just would not stop droning.
Dude, I stopped at book 4 of Harry Potter because I was just like,
fair.
I'm old at this point, and I know a lot of people continued for whatever reason. That's fine, but I just I grew up and I put away foolish things. And I was like, you know what, though? I'm going to keep reading Animorphs, though.
Well, Animorphs, it helps that Animorphs is not only is it good, but it's not written by an idiot.
That too.
And let's go let's go live in the universe where Animorphs achieve the success of Harry Potter.
I mean, you got all these fucking like what house are you part of? Fuck it, what furry fetish are you a part of? Because that's what I want to know.
What did the Andalite? What animal did the Andalites give you?
Yep. Anyway,
how do you pronounce Hork-Bajir? Is it like that?
It's Hork-Bajir. No, it's Hork-Bajir. And you said it exactly the way that I say it. And I've never asked anyone in my entire goddamn life how to say Hork-Bajir because it's Hork-Bajir.
I mean, I'm in that same camp. It's Hork-Bajir.
Ugh, I feel so validated right now.
I fucking love you so much, dude.
I love you, man. Like it was like 4 years ago. I think longer than 4 years ago. I was in Monterey randomly, just walking around, and I go into a goddamn bookshop, and there's the Hork-Bajir Chronicles, and I'm like, oh, my childhood encapsulated in the book. Yes, I'm buying this, and I reread it in a fucking hour.
Yes,
it was so good.
Anyway, our protagonist is trapped in an alien city game.
This is a dumb show.
Oh, an Andalite and the weird lizard monster get it on in a fucking Vietnam metaphor. Yeah, okay. I'm here for this.
This episode of Undercooked Analysis brought to you by the Hork-Bajir, yes, for pronouncing it correctly, Chronicles.
Brought to you by K.A. Applegate, not sponsored.
Everyone's going to be so surprised when we finish the year of Pulp. And guess what, motherfuckers? We're reading the Animorphs book.
Beginning to end, all of the supplementary material.
New goal. Instead of getting Dronian to let us read Happy Appy, we get Kate Applegate on the show.
Hello, yes, there's a bunch of people in their 30s who really want to read your shit.
You hear that, Dronian? You're yesterday's news. This is now a book-by-book episodic discussion of every Animorphs
book. We joke, but I would do it. In a heartbeat, I would do that.
Yeah, we do need more podcasts.
What I think Tobias is his journey in that.
I mean, it's not being able to go back from your previous mistakes. I think we can all relate to that.
And also how being a hawk is cool.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, can't we all just agree that whole meme, go back, I want to become monk, is just Tobias did it before it was cool?
Yeah. No.
What disquieted? Hey, get in the comments if you want us to record a pilot of us talking about the first Animorphs book.
If you manage to stick with us this far through this nonsense,
dude,
please let us know.
The first Animorphs book, I'm pretty sure it's either Marco or someone else turns into a gorilla and gets shot up by a fucking MP5. That book doesn't fuck around.
No, it doesn't.
Like that. We're getting off topic. We need to read this.
We need to read this. This is a long story.
This show is dumb.
It's only as dumb as we make it, and we make it pretty dumb.
We're pretty dumb.
At least we own up to it.
You dummies, let us judge your stories.
Don't you give us money to do it.
Well, I think it's the fact that we're giving them money.
Well, but for everyone else. Everyone else.
That's true. Yeah. Hey, everybody. Hey, everybody.
What are you doing here?
I feel like we should give all the runners-up a copy of an Animorphs book.
Runners-up get to participate in the poll. Whether or not we will read in it, we will do a pilot, an untitled, as of yet untitled pilot of us reading the Animorphs books.
The poll options are yes and hell yes.
Can it be one where you bring on guests every so often, kind of like what me and Kayla were doing on Animusics?
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Mm-hmm. No, if you're an Animorphs fan, absolutely.
Okay.
What disquieted me? God damn it! Everyone, shut the fuck up.
Okay.
Deep breath. Oh, deep breath in. Oh, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Okay. Professional. I'm a professional. What disquieted me more so, what disquieted me more so was the queer appearance of the abundant windows. Their varying geometric shapes glowed with such bright colors that they reflected in the polished road beneath, and somehow tinted the crimson atmosphere in a shade of a navy uniform. Shade of a navy uniform.
A uniform a uniform that is navy colored.
So navy blue. I'm guessing. Yeah.
Because my brain was just like the uniform of someone in the Navy.
Yeah.
We want you as a Navy crew. This is. Oh my God! This is like that episode of The Simpsons where they're like join the Navy.
Every single pane of glass in my field of view looked as if there was either a teal, red, green, yellow, or pink desk lamp sitting just behind it. Despite this, my isolation felt absolute. One would assume the neighborhood illuminated by these morbidly vivid beacons would be thriving. But my gaze met no other eyes. The roads were completely barren, and there was no hint of movement behind the glass. I had no need for the visual verification, as deep within I could feel the lack of any living soul before me. That was all I could see from where I immediately stood. Miles upon miles of labyrinthine streets, when my view wasn't obscured by the gigantic constructs filled with nothing and no one.
I turned to what could have been the east to see what lay at the opposite end of the cobbles. The brick enclosure that ran the circumference of the premises encircled a mauve building set apart from the intricate districts, looming approximately 10 stories above me. The first floor shrunk in size as they ascended to the fifth, which looked too small to support those above it. The slightest breeze certainly would have threatened to topple it under more ordinary circumstances, yet there it stood, the cinched nature of the middle giving the entire complex a vaguely feminine silhouette. I recognized the style of construction to be quite modern and was much more consistent with the structural and decorative sensibilities of the city I called home than the endless maze that surrounded me. Even still, the weathering it had endured was akin to apartments I had seen that were decades old. Cantilever rooms were topped by Queen Anne slopes, their shingles chipping and occasionally missing entirely. Flat surfaces, both roof and balcony alike, were adorned with fencing and finials that evoked the image of jail cell bars and matched the cocoa bean tint of the eaves, trim, and columns covering the rest of the fortification. The walls were busy with lavish reliefs and sunbursts. Pots and flower beds that dotted the terraces held shriveled, ashy leaves, which matched the torrid husks of trees across the rest of the property. 2 large signs of identical print, each in the same bizarre and illegible language I had seen in the city, hung above the bottom and top floors.
The monstrous tower was embellished with its own set of fresh horrors. Its sides had colossal splinters of objects thrust into it, as if a behemoth had torn them up and thrown them with enough force to embed within the bricks. One appeared at initial glance to be nautical in nature. I dared not look any closer. I had no desire to allow my subconscious to invert what other sizable beast could have had the strength to catapult things from a body of water so far from view, nor what other items there were that could imply an even more disturbing distance or truth.
To avoid further observing the distressing shards, I turned my attention to a carved reptilian eye, which leered down from immediately under the highest rooftop. The thin pupils struck me with the feeling of being closely observed, despite the obvious stone texture across the surface. Further concerning were the many tiers of ornate lanterns and Moorish windows that were all alight. Though not as pigmented, their intensity reminded me all the same of the empty urban streets. The lamplight from within radiated a long beam across the ground from a gaping hole in the place of the front door. Despite my fears, the more familiar framework and less disturbingly garish colors made this property the more welcoming of the 2 paths, so I chose to approach it, readjusting my spectacles as I did.
I contemplated briefly between peering through the adorning armatures to see the rooms behind the glass or stepping under the shredded fabric that festooned the vestibule motionless in the windless air. Before I could make any decision, a terrible creature bounded towards me from the yawning orifice. Its amber eyes bored deep into me, the true color of its pupils immediately imperceptible behind a sheen that burned like scarlet coals, reflecting the room's fierce glow like those of an alley cat. Just before passing the threshold, its feet clacked to a halt.
As its black cracked lips moved and flashed rows of pointed yellow teeth behind them, my ears perceived a womanly voice that spoke in a haunting dialect. It rose and fell with musicality, filled with chirps and caterwauls I was certain no human tongue could replicate. But my mind, oh God, my own mind, had all its thoughts pressed aside to project sentences I did not conjure of my own volition. The thing had stolen my own inner voice to dictate within my head. So horrible and invasive was the experience that I let out a frail gasp. Waiting as long as I have has brought me so much pain. Its musings echoed internally with a thunderous vigor as it sang. I can scarcely believe I had the patience to bring the right soul to my doorstep. Ooh. I mean, yeah.
A little abrupt on the beast's introduction, but it pays off later.
It does.
It strode closer as I was frozen in place, too fearful to make even the slightest movement. The bone-white face of the eldritch wretch cracked into a broad smile as it looked down on me. It was a porcelain doll, but with features grotesquely enlarged and inhumanly stretched, with cheeks that were airbrushed a rosy blush and its oversized eyes brimmed with thick lashes. The subtle, animalistic muzzle of its extruded maw ended in a dark and diminutive canine nose, delicately painted so realistically that it seemed to flare with each inhalation. Stringy, flaxen hair resembling the tint of dried straw hung down past its shoulders. I had no courage to lower my gaze and examine this beast further, petrified by what unspeakable body this being bore, and too transfixed, as I was, by its nearly vacant regard.
This is actually a pretty disturbing image as I'm trying to picture it.
Yeah.
It's intimidating.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's fucking doll-faced, like, vaguely animal, almost teddy bear, just because of the nose. Like, ew. Yeah.
The fiend circled me, its careful strides like that of a large feline predator from Safari Plains, scheming over the most opportune moment to pounce and tear open the neck of its prey. Mephitic hot expirations puffed upon my nape once it left my peripheral. You've made this place feel inhabited for the first time in eons. It continued to speak and think simultaneously. This city longs for the breath of a mortal creature. It welcomes you with an open-armed embrace.
Burning flesh contacted my shoulder, and I was pulled from my stupor. I screamed and let my feet carry me as swiftly as they could, as I tried to widen the distance between myself and whatever hideous fate lay for me with that monster. My footing caught the raised step of the reflective road, and I stumbled, but recovered my pace before I could fall. I had no time to consider the parallel route of the sidewalk prior to leaving the basalt lawn in my wake. Once I had thought to do so, I knew that attempts to vault over either surrounding fence would cost me whatever precious ground I may have gained. There were no residents to allow me refuge if I were to pound upon the doors of the boarding structures, and I was aware by some means that they would be locked and bolted if I tried to open any by my own force. The presence of an earthly being grants me strength. Its harangue continued to reach me. For how long I have expected you, I feared I might expire.
I risked a glance over my shoulder, nearly too late to see the ivory horror airborne, diving upon me as if it had leapt to an inconceivable height. I saw then that its soulless yellowing sclera surrounded elongated black ovals like volcanic islands in oceans of broiling magma. Its forelimbs were outstretched, ending in bony hands capped with inky claws that reached threateningly towards me. I ducked and tumbled as it flew overhead. Raw cuts stung my hands and knees as I picked myself off from the warm street, hobbling back into my sprint. Its voice was a high-pitched howl as it called after me. You elevate me to such a that's Dr. Satan.
Yep. Welcome to the fifth dimension, Keen.
You elevate me to such a zenith that I cannot let you escape.
What Dr. Satan is actually thinking every time he sees Ascot Keen. My God, I'm going to kiss that man someday.
I don't know what Dr. Satan sees in Keen. I don't know
what Keen sees in Dr. Satan.
That weird bird man.
Yeah. My heart pounded with such strained exertion that I was terrified it might burst from my chest at any moment, as if my rib cage were nothing more than a sheet of newspaper covering the barrel of a pistol. My head throbbed in time with it, and both coalesced with my footfalls to form a disharmonious syncopation. The cacophony reverberated down my spine, making my entire anatomy rattle from within. Inertia carried me as I tried in vain to evade capture once again. I looked up to the queer placards upon the cerulean walls, hopeless, though I knew the act was, in a vain attempt to perceive even a minute minute sense of direction. They mocked me for my efforts, for some of them not only exhibited the same unnatural text as the rest, but were also fashioned into arrows that pointed in every way imaginable. Those that denoted back or forth were just as useless as those that led up or down.
Oh, he's driving in California.
Yep.
What a dark future awaits us. Only the most rudimentary impulses were left to fester within my skull. Goals and prospects beyond the purview of a fraction of a moment vaporized, leaving the primitive instinct for survival in their absence. I concentrated exclusively upon placing one foot before the other and distancing myself from where I was 2 paces prior as I turned a street corner. After passing only a few latched doors, the blue monoliths obscured my vision no more. Their foundations were no longer level with the road I trod upon, leaving a less shrouded view of the awful expanse from between the palisade stakes. The bridge I now ran across loomed tens of feet above the ground of the great maze, leaving only the tallest buildings to surpass its height. I had felt exposed above such a valley, and despite already feeling as though my gait could quicken no more, I pushed my body until it did so. The opposite edge of the ravine was within sight, with bottom floors realigned with the walkway as abruptly as they had ceased to be. I rushed toward the dense construction to once again have the towering refuge surrounding me. Keep running. It was initially difficult to discern these thoughts from my own. As it continued, it became clear the demands were not an internal behest for self-preservative action. Keep running for as long as that infirm vessel will carry you. This place is more endless than you can comprehend. You may use whatever strength you have to abscond, but I will find you all the same.
I had nearly reached the verge of the azure hedged path when the burning coils snaked their way up my ankles. My motions slowed as though I were treading through a viscous ocean. The surrounding variegated windows poisoned the reach of their brilliance, but still I recognized the sensation that had initially pulled me from my comfortable abode. Words flowed from my lips in an uncontrollable babble as I begged and pleaded, but my prayers went entirely unanswered. The blinding lights, even more blistering than the last moment it grew familiar with my frame, traveled further upwards. As it did so, my entire body felt as though every inch of flesh was branded by white irons. My lungs were scalded with equal agony as I let out a scream. Once more, my surroundings faded into unpigmented nothingness.
My sight returned several excruciating moments later, and my legs gave way from under me. I let out a haggard exhalation as my knees struck the rigid ground. My skin still smoldered, as the feeling of an all-encompassing inferno hardly diminished as the brilliant tentacles receded. I looked down to find I had tightly clutched my own chest. Smoke the color of beetroot curled from between my fingers like an unattended cigar as I stared in quivering panic. I could hardly differentiate one thump of my pulse from the next as my heart seemed it would collapse to ashes within my breast. Tears welled in my ducts, only to evaporate before they could run down my cheeks. The cruel pain was very nearly as blinding as the rose-tinted aura had been now but strung with twice the severity where my body contacted the surface of the street. I longed for the embrace of the sun if it meant the immediate torture I endured then might cease.
I saw the shape of the beast floating towards me, seated atop a magenta cloud of what was unquestionably the manifestation of an accursed sorcery. Behind it, I could barely discern the maroon hourglass. I had been transported to the very spot I had dodged the monster's bounding assault from what felt like decades ago. My progress had been completely erased, as if I had simply laid down to die at its feet at that moment it had passed overhead.
When it thought and spoke again, I detected sympathy within its tone, as if it were capable of feeling pity for my bruised and tender complexion. I was sure that such a loathsome entity experiencing the compassionate emotions of mortal man was an impossibility, and was instead struck with the realization that it was already so deeply entwined with my mentality that it could easily replicate my timbre and mannerisms with disgusting accuracy.
There is no escape for you here, it cooed. It lifted a palm and a limb of identical nature to the noxious levitating fog the being rested upon. It lifted a palm, and a limb of identical nature to the noxious levitating fog that being rested upon shot from between its extended claws. That, I understand what's happening.
Yeah, it's shooting it's shooting some smoke at him.
Yeah, that's the first time I've been like, that could be rewritten.
Yeah.
It ensnared my legs and pulled me backwards. I screamed with a hoarse voice as I reached my hands out before me, desperate to find purchase where there was none, upon the smooth ground as my fingers slid unavailingly across its surface. The horrid creature pounced on my back, and I felt its scorching skin pressing against my own. As it opened its jaw and whispered inches from my ear, I smelled its putrid respirations. It is time for our game to come to an end.
The creature's appendages wrapped around me as the scintillating glow danced at my heels. I was like a rodent shaking in the grip of a cat who had long ago lost its patience to regard its morsel like a plaything any longer. Its grip was as tight as steel, and I doubted I would have broken free of it if I were in fighting condition. The light overcame the both of us.
Within the bright flash, I felt a familiar weightlessness return, and I was left sinking through the cosmic abyss that had plagued my nightmares for hundreds of consecutive nights. I knew with hideous clarity that they were not dreams at all, but a transit between our world and this place. Some unknowable wasteland, built upon dark magic. I felt as though at any instant my cranium would split like the opening of an ancient tome, and rupture into a great fissure through which true comprehension of this vile region would be impelled upon me, and seep into my sulchi?
I would say sulchi. Yeah.
My mouth twisted into a shriek, but no sound laughed it. I have no mouth and I must scream.
Hey! I do have a mouth, but no scream comes out. It's not as good of a title.
Yeah. I've got a mouth, but I'm bad at screaming. There it is.
I got a mouth, but I lost my voice.
Have mouth, scream hard.
Send help.
Either I had lost enough vitality to call out, or this terrible place could not project the sound of a mortal utterance. I tried to swim as I fell past distant stars and churning mist, the colors of a late solstice sunset. But still I descended. My years of nightly torment accumulated in that very moment.
I've scoured your earth for centuries to find a man fit for my right. The wailing call seemed to project from across the entire expanse at once until the pale face emerged from the celestial oblivion. It was so close I could see the fine grain upon its surface, like the texture of eggshells. One of its appendages found my shoulders and wrapped around it, as the other took my right hand in its left palm against singled palm, with the gentle coaxing of a mother to a lost child. As my eternal fall slowed to a frozen suspension, its talons interlaced between my fingers and sliced deeply into my interdigi. To keep you here, my own blood now pumps through your veins, and my breath fills your lungs. Your form has become an extension of my own, and you will remain here for as long as I keep you.
Oh, damn. The pale brute drew me closer to its body during its loquacious monologuing, leaving my arm to fall limp at my side as it moved its touch to my cheek. My own gore oozed down my chin in a creeping rivulet. The vivid scarlet appeared to writhe at the corner of my vision as the stained claws rested just below my eyeglasses, with my lashes nearly resting upon the pointed obsidian surfaces. The sound of my voice still failed to catch hold in the stagnant air, but my quiet whimpering hardly would have been audible if it had. I closed my eyes firmly to conceal the terrible sight of the abhorrent marionette and surrounding perpetual cosmos from them. I had no rest from the atrocities, for once my vision had blackened, I felt parched lips baked into the thin flakes and chips of aging paint under the gaze of foreign celestial objects pressed against my own. Its exhalations seeped past my teeth like the thick smoke of burning incense through a thurible, leaving a foul taste of putrescent eggs as it danced past my tongue and down my throat. My suppositions began to shrivel away as colossal knowledge of this place, of this being, of the nature of my kidnapping, of everything, began to bloom within my head.
I heard my cries before I felt I was producing them, and my windpipe ached as if I had been calling out for days. Despite my lids sheltering me from their full intensity, the luminosity of the returning tendrils penetrated them with swirling red phosphenes. As my weight sunk into a congenial mattress, there was a flicker of comfort before I realized it was not my own linen sheets I lay upon, but ones made of a lavish satin. My floundering upon them was entirely unfruitful due to unyielding binds that knotted around my ankles and wrists, the head and baseboards of the extortionate bed acting more akin to the rollers of the torturous rack. My position was sacrificial, of which I had been cursed with the understanding.
Probably the best line in the whole story right there.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah.
Very good.
I love it.
A chessboard ceiling, the black squares of which were filled with sheets of glass, provided a glimpse at the star-peppered skies. 4 larger panes that ran the length and height of the entire wall to my right showcased the sapphire skyline between velvet curtains the shade of overripe plums. Furnishings within the surrounding room were thick with an undisturbed dust, and the wallpaper that was decorated with elaborate patterns of tangled vines and thorny roses certainly matched the color of the brick exterior. I was trapped within an upper floor of the mauve tower, marooned on a forsaken desert isle amidst the oceanic warren of city streets. Planetoids and far-off windows alike glimmered in a manner that matched the deriding chortles of sinister onlookers, forming a tremendous crowd.
Can I say I appreciate the fact that there's a double meaning to the term marooned here, because you could also describe that as the color of the floor. The knob of the ornate golden door to the opposite end of where I lay turned, revealing the full form of the creature as it forced the entrance open. It was an act more emblematic of my imprisonment than truly prohibitive. It used a tiny key to lock the door behind itself. As it stood before me, hunched but imposing, I could avert my eyes no longer, and beheld its horrible figure. I have been agonized by these sterile lands, it began, its bird-song call uniting with my, or its, no, our internal divulgence. The distance between us closed as it strode nearer. Its soft steps upon the carpeted floor kicked grime from it that swirled in the wake of its trampling. I have rotted here longer than corporeal beings could ever conceive. You have been blessed, and you have spellbound me. Gods beyond your familiarity will be our only witnesses.
We will become one with each other.
Oh, God!
I was just about to say, God damn, I am turned on, but...
I'm sorry I can't do a sexy monster voice, everybody. It's my greatest regret in life. We will become one with each other, it thought with finality, though I scarcely heard it between the overwhelming din of my growing penis, lunacy.
Continued on page 286.
Of my growing lunacy. I comprehended then that the battering of my earthly frame was but the first of many movements that spanned decades beyond. The cataclysmic finale of this horrifying symphony, the imminent staging of which mankind could do nothing to prevent, would impact each and every mortal soul, those young and old, living and deceased, that had existed and were yet to, for eternity thereafter.
Find you a partner who can batter your earthly frame.
Boy, howdy if we spoiled what the ending of this story is.
Well, to be fair, how many of you saw, when you read this, did you see it coming the moment it was mentioned lavish satin? Or
yeah.
But then again, I saw it kind of the moment the monster fucking kissed this guy.
I mean, it doesn't help that I've been reading a lot of smut lately, but I was like, oh, no, predatory? I know where this is going. The weeds of madness fully blossomed, and I laughed in the face of my plight. Heaving sobs punctuated my hysterics as I felt the dark sorcery of the ivory monster tear at my clothes and observed it as its own paws felt for the seams in the garments hanging loose from its frame. Its attire fell disregarded to the floor below, and where they had been, a set of bone-white, womanly breasts protruded from its naked form. For its immediate ritual did not demand blood. No. God, no, no! My body was bound in place for a cardinal ceremony.
Hell yeah, brother.
Get you
Watch
some.
for The Warlocks of the St. August Belfry by K.M. Stewart, a shocking, weird scientific story of the dark magics performed within the unassuming tower of a New England chapel, and the related tragedy that befalls the denizens of the surrounding township. Available in the September issue of Bizarre Stories, a strange fiction magazine.
Bizarre smut.
The most bizarre smut.
So that was third place.
That's our third placer, and holy shit.
That's our third place. It was my first.
And it's very strong.
It is a very, very strong story. And I do enjoy the fact that this is a, you think it doesn't go the direction of the sacrifice you see. The fate is much, 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 much worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh. Mm-hmm. Gosh, yeah, I don't know what to say. One of the reasons
Unless the continuation of this story is like 10 minutes later. Turns out I'm into it.
Watch, it cuts back to them. He's smoking in bed next to this creature.
Cooking eggs. So what are you doing tomorrow?
Which one's doing the cooking? Him or the Ivory horror?
Oh, him.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's up there. He's got an apron on. Says,
he's pregnant. Definitely.
What you thinking about?
I don't know. Writhing eels?
Yeah, me
it's
too.
Thinking about other mortals that wants to impregnate. I just know it.
I know this was... Listen, when we got together, I knew you said this was going to span, like, eons, but, like, I know, we did it once, and I'm just not into it anymore. What happened? What happened to the spark of our love?
You're not the same person I was trying to stalk down on the bottom floor.
You're not the same person I tormented with nightmares for decades for years to make sure he was the right one.
I took 2 trains across the whole country to meet with you. I can't go back to California.
I love how little it seems like this person's background factors into it all. The reason it just seems like cosmic happenstance. But then again, our protagonist does kind of understands what's going on, but we never do. But I kind of appreciate that.
I can go either way on it. Like if we're doing like the music of Eric Zan, for example, there's a reason. But sometimes the inexplicable is more satisfying. It's really up to subjective opinion.
That's
at that point.
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that and we didn't talk a lot whilst reading this because there's not a lot to say. In the moment, this is a very densely written, incredibly imaginative story. There's just tons and tons of description, and all of it is very luscious. So when you get something that's a feast for the senses, you kind of just take it in. You don't have a lot of opportunities to pick it apart, but which is not a bad thing at all.
You will find a chance to talk about the Animorphs, though.
Yeah.
If you're us and you're incredibly dumb. Yeah. No regrets.
Hey, so having read this and acknowledge the third place status, I wanted to give a shout out to the writer A.S. Evans.
Okay.
So thank you, A.S. Evans. Your check's in the mail. No, I mean, I guess we'll get it figure out how the distribution. But yes, you are our third place winner. Hooray!
Hooray!
Yay!
Congrats!
I wanted to add the thing that made this one first place for me that I think it nailed is I described it as the paid by the word aspect of pulp that we've been finding.
Yes,
just the almost to the point of ridiculousness. Use of language in this story is so fucking good.
The fact that you found you found new words to describe other things constantly. It's like, oh, there's a thesaurus over here. There we go.
I did tell everyone, break out your thesaurus.
I could have stopped at least once a paragraph to mention a band I used to play bass for. So
we would never fucking leave here if we were doing that exercise.
Oh, for sure. Woof. And I think it says a lot that we only really broke once to go on a tangent about Animorphs. Otherwise, we stayed pretty consistent reading it. So
that was unplanned, and I have never been happier.
Same. Well, thank you for joining us for the first of 3 episodes that are going to be dealing with the results of the new Pulp Writing Challenge. I want to thank everybody who entered the competition. And we're going to leave you all on a cliffhanger for a little bit, at least except for A.S. Evans. You know who you are, and you know when hopefully you'll be getting that cash prize. Everybody else, hang on. We'll be back in 2 weeks to give you the next entry. But in the meantime, if you enjoyed what you heard, you can go back and listen to previous episodes of Undercooked Analysis. We are all here on the Creative Horror Network. Whether you're listening to us through YouTube or through your preferred podcast form, Any sort of support you can give the show in terms of word of mouth or liking it or subscribing or however, or sharing it is always appreciated. We are, we're a small group. We just like to do these sort of things. And it's always such a wonder to me that enough people have stuck by us and have interest enough in this that they are willing to submit their own writing to competitions like this. We are deeply, deeply grateful.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
That being said, further support for the show if you enjoy what we hear here. And also check out the other fine podcasts on the Creative Horror Network, whether those podcasts are, as mentioned, on hiatus or are concluded. Those are shows like the upcoming return of the Jameson tapes. Is that fair to say that we're going to get a few more episodes of that pretty soon?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That is absolutely.
If you don't donate to the Patreon, hey, consider it, because I hate to say it, but if you want all of the Animorphs books on Kindle, that's like $220 I'm looking at right now.
Yeah.
Patreon.com/creative horror if you'd like to come and become a patron. You can also hear the really long drags that we said were going to be really short for this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome for fucking feature-length long dregs.
You get us all in a room together. We're going to tangent on something. Well, Discord room, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll see you all in 2 weeks with the next story. But until then, brace yourselves. And remember, if an Ivory horror comes to visit you, make sure they at least take you to dinner first.
My name is Jake. That's my first name, obviously. I can't tell you my last name. It would be too dangerous. The controllers are everywhere.
Good evening, intrepid listeners. This is the Pasta Shade, the host of Midnight Marinara, and this podcast is part of CreativeHorror.com, a network of podcasts and creators working together to build a constructive community of horror fans. For more content like this, visit us at CreativeHorror.com.